Here comes the sun, doo 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 doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. What's poppin', people? It's Dante getting the morning started off here in Fairmount Park, Philadelphia, watching the sun peer above the horizon. Yeah, it's time to get the day started. So excited for the day. I love watching a beautiful sunrise. And yeah, over the hills and far away, the sun is coming out to play. And been thinking about light a lot recently. You know, as a photographer, this to me, ultimately, I believe, is my interest. You know, after a decade of photographing and traveling the world, I believe that after all of these years, it's been light. You know, light is what I've always chased as a photographer. As much as I was looking for fleeting moments and humanity and photographing different communities, going here, going there, at the core of a photograph, you know, the essence of the medium of photography is light itself. And I believe that maybe, you know, generally light is the essence of all things. You know, if you think about it in terms of the laws of physics, or on a scientific front, the Big Bang, you know, the smallest particle, the smallest atom, hydrogen, that's most prevalent in the universe, can produce an abundance of energy. And through that abundance of energy, we have life, we have light. From a dark void, light filled the cosmos, filled the universe, and now we're here somehow through a cosmic soup. You know, we are light, right? If you think about it metaphorically, in terms of what Jesus says, you are the light of the earth. I like to think of it this way because not only am I stardust made of these light particles and cosmic things, I believe that on a metaphorical level, you know, the actions and interactions that we have through acts of kindness, through love, and through the mark that we leave in the world, we too are this ever-flowing constant light that will outlive us, right? Where I may be stardust, I may be a flesh-bound creature, you know, bound by gravity, who cuts, who bleeds, who feels pain, suffer, joy, and sorrow, and will die. You know, if you assume that you're not going to respawn, right? You're playing hardcore mode in the video game, you don't believe in the afterlife. Well, even so, your body will decompose, nourishing the soil, nourishing the worms, the bees, the insects, and all of the natural things around you after you're gone. And so there is an infinite cycle of death and rebirth within nature, watching the way that the trees are looming and changing with the seasons. But we too, while we are finite, perhaps live on infinitely on a biological sort of natural level, which is interesting. But yeah, alas, as a photographer, I believe light at the core of my interest never ceases to keep me curious. You know, depending on the time of the day, the season, the place, you know, these elements within the world, right? When I'm composing a picture, looking at forms, shapes, moments, people, places, you know, these things maybe are in my control, right? Where I can put a rectangle around life, I can understand things visually, I can look at life in front of me and make a cohesive picture. But the element of light, this to me is the most interesting aspect, the glue that holds a composition, a photograph together, and it's out of our control. And so this element of a photograph, the light, being out of our control, makes photography so rewarding because it's challenging to work with. You know, to find a moment is one thing, but to wield the light and to uplift the photograph through something that's out of our control is another. And At the core of photography lies the Latin root of the word, which is phos, meaning light. Is it Latin or Greek? And graphia, meaning writing, or drawing. And so when we're photographing, we're creating an instant sketch of light, right? We're drawing with light, we're painting with light. And this has me think of this allegory from Plato's Republic. I recently read this past year, the allegory of the cave. And essentially in this allegory you have prisoners chained to a wall, and fire is casting shapes and forms upon the wall for the prisoners to view, and this is their perception of reality. It's those shadows, those forms on the wall, those shapes on the wall rather. But the eternal form is behind, the scenes, and they don't have a perception of these things. However, the photographer is perhaps like the prisoner who frees themselves, returning to the surface, returning to the source of light, the sun, viewing the forms in reality for what it truthfully is. However, when we make a photograph, it's almost like those shadows casted on the wall in the cave that the prisoners are viewing. Where the shadows casted on the wall are like that instant sketch of light, life that we create in a photograph, which isn't necessarily telling the truth, right? Like, is photography the truth? I feel as though a photograph, is that telling the truth? Perhaps a photograph ultimately is a really good lie. And it's very similar to those shadows casted on the wall. If you think of cave paintings, the first images drawn on walls, that to me is what a high contrast black and white photograph is like, right? It's the return to that, instant sketch, like that little sketch, and I think that's a beautiful thing, right? To view photography this way, it provides like this endless expanse, right? Where the world is the canvas, and the way that light gives shape and form to surfaces, people, places, and things provides infinite novelty for the photographer to work with and to draw upon. And so, this past year I went on a trip to the King of Prussia Mall with two friends. We viewed the movie Oppenheimer. I remember the scene when they split the atom and the screen went bright white and the music turned off. There was no audio, and you could see this beautiful scene of just whiteness, just light itself. And this idea of light being produced from matter on the physical level, it's just, it's like a freaking miracle. Like, science and religion, to me, they're kind of like the same thing, and everything is kind of out of our control. We're only really responsible for responding to the world. And I believe that as a photographer, maybe the spontaneous nature of light, the spontaneous nature of life gives us this godlike ability to put order to this chaos, to this spontaneity, through an act of creation similar to that of God creating the universe, similar to that of God creating the world from chaos to order. And maybe one day, we all must and will die. However, through the creation of a photograph, you can live on forever, and I believe that, the power of photography lies in the ability for the individual with a camera to create a new world, to create your own world. And the difference between a photographer making a picture and a bystander observing life for what it is that when we make a picture and we let light emanate through our camera, touching our sensors, we're transcending reality, and we're abstracting and extracting from life itself to create these new worlds through our perspective, through light, through shape and form, but also from our personal point of view, from our perception of reality, through our emotional response to the world around us, through our intuition, right? And yeah, that to me is my core interest right now. It's light. You know, light is the essence of all things. And perhaps as photographers, we should think about light more and how we can use it in our photographs throughout our everyday lives, through our experiences, and share them with others. Wow, beautiful sunrise. I'll make a photograph.